Welcome to Cashflow Savannah, episode 58. Chandler, how are you today? You doing all right?
Doing good, doing good. Staying pretty busy, so always a good
You know
thing.
what? There is always something going on in short-term rental land. Always.
Getting ready for another hurricane as well, so that's fun.
That's true. Why wouldn't we have another disaster on top of a hurricane? I mean, that's how we roll. Ugh. Sorry, Chandler and I just got some kind of crazy news that we're still kind of like bouncing back from. But
Yeah,
today we have a very special guest. We have Savannah local, Savannah native Sapphire Star. I had the pleasure of meeting her at our local meetup, and she's incredible. And I talked to her for 5 minutes and I was like, I need to know more. Like, she's really interesting.
yeah, she knows her stuff. I would say is have your notes out, take some notes. I think it's a good one to take notes on acquisitions and how to acquire properties, um, creative strategies, medium term. So I think it's a good one to take your notes and
All of the things. And Sapphire said this off camera. I wish we would have gotten it on video, but she was born and raised here in Savannah and not in a great area of town, did not come from any money. And she's just kind of willed her way through life and is doing very well. We're her biggest fans. Like, it was just a pleasure. And I just can't say enough thank yous to Sapphire for coming on today. It was a really great episode. So without further ado, we're going to bring on Sapphire Star. Well, welcome to Cashflow Savannah podcast. Sapphire, how are you today? It's such a pleasure.
I am doing well. I'm so honored to be here on the Cashflow podcast. I'm super excited and nervous at the same time.
We're glad to have you. Chandler and I love to feature local real estate investors, and you are absolutely that. But I did speak to you for a few minutes at the meetup recently, and you were knocking my socks off. And I was like, we have got to talk on the podcast. So the thing we love about real estate is that everyone does it a different way. And you certainly, have your own way. So just give us a brief synopsis. Don't tell us too much, but just give us kind of a little bit of a taste of who you are, Sapphire, before we get into it.
Absolutely. I am Sapphire Star, owner of Queens Buy Houses, where we buy distressed properties and we rehab them and turn them into midterm rentals for travel healthcare professionals. We do our acquisition mainly by creative financing, which gives us so much creativity when it comes to acquiring property, and also provides so many options for us when it comes to making deals. So in any market really, because some people they're like, oh, certain markets you can't make money, but when you learn how to do things creatively, there's always opportunities in the market to make money. And so focusing on single family acquisition, acquiring properties.
Very good.
cool. I like it. You said Queens buy houses. Is that what you said?
Queens Buy Houses. Yes. So do any of you play chess?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
a little bit.
Yeah, so it is obviously it's a queen, right? I'm a queen,
Yeah.
but it's a chess reference. And if you know anything about chess, the queen is the king is the most, he's the most important piece on the board. However, the queen is the most powerful because she can make moves the king can't make. And our tagline for Queens Buy Houses is, we are here to serve in any capacity that we can, to help owners in whatever situation that they're in, to help them solve their problem and create win-win scenarios and situations for, the owners as well as us as the buyers.
I love
I
that.
like it. That's a really cool pitch.
Yeah.
Are you mainly in the Savannah area, or do you work outside of Savannah? Like, what's your favorite kind of market?
Yeah, absolutely. Savannah and surrounding areas, as well as Metro Atlanta. Ever since I started Queens Buy Houses in the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. Just a quick background about how I even got started in real estate. Many moons ago, I would say maybe about 20 years ago, at least, I think, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
However, in that time in my life, I had a lot of limiting beliefs around investing in real estate. And so I didn't think that it was something that was possible for me. I thought it was just for rich folks. I thought you had to have all this money to be able to invest in real estate. What I quickly learned is that's how people make money, actually, is investing in real estate. But it took me a while to come to a point in my life and my mindset to understand fundamentally, like, this is something that I would love to pursue and to do it scared. So during the pandemic, I was living in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And that was the time where I was originally supposed to be 30 days. 30 days turned into 4 months. And so I asked myself, man, like, I'm already financially free. I started my financial freedom journey back in 2009, read Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, and paid off $33,000 worth of debt, saved to invest, fired my boss, and began traveling the world. So I had already become financially free and created this lifestyle that I can do what I want whenever I want it. So while living in Mexico during the pandemic, it was like, man, how can I stay free? That became the running theme in my head. And it was immediately real estate. And so I set my intentions and my mindset in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, to come back to America to start my real estate investing company with no money and no experience. It wasn't like I was broke, but again, it was that limiting mindset, like, oh, I needed all this money. But I didn't allow that to stop me from at least pursuing my dream of investing in real estate, because my why, my foundation, why I wanted to invest in real estate was far powerful than my limiting beliefs. And I wanted to invest in real estate because I wanted freedom. I wanted freedom to travel. I wanted freedom to spend time with my daughter and my granddaughter and to be able to travel with them. I wanted to buy my time back and not have to clock in to a 9 to 5. I really wanted to live my life. We only have one life to live. And I just didn't want that to be confined to the 9 to 5 grind. And so that was my motivation. I came back to America and I just really hit the ground running with learning how to invest. Education was probably one of the single most things that you can do in this journey of getting started in real estate investing with little money and little experience, is to educate yourself.
Mm. How did you start that process, Sapphire? What was your first? You read Rich Dad Poor Dad. What was your next step in your educational journey?
Yes. So the next step was YouTube University.
Hey, yeah.
I went to YouTube University and I stumbled upon Bigger Pockets podcast and the biggerpockets.com website. And there was such a plethora of information there. I just started there and I really gravitated toward the Bigger Pocket Rookie podcast because it was people I felt like were right where I was, and they shared their story and their experiences from the beginning, like, okay, this is where I was and this is what I did and this is how I made it happen. So those stories on the Rookie podcast really resonated to me. And the podcasts, they were about an hour long. And so what I would do when I came back, I would say, okay, time management is important. That's our most valuable asset. And so I treated this journey as a new job, a new business, or a new education, like going back to school, like getting your degree. It took me 4 years to get my bachelor's in science and biology degree. And that was my approach. So I committed at least 4 to 5 hours a day towards real estate. And a part of that was listening to at least 1 hour of an educational podcast on YouTube, spending about an hour with reading real estate books. Any real estate book that I can get a hold of, I began reading all these books. And you see, these are things that are low cost or free. And then I started going to networking events. so I could meet people and players in the space that I wanted to be in. And that's how I began that journey. And after so many months, I realized, because there's a lot of information out there. And so I was like, man, I understood the power of having a coach, because my business that I started, I'm a financial life coach. And so I understood the power of having a coach and a mentor to align myself with for my business, but also investing in myself as well as my business. So at one of these networking events, I observed. I'm really a person that just observe and sit back and see, because I'm a big energy person, and this is a relationship based business. And so I really sat back and looked at the people and how they were moving, their credibility, and just how they were navigating. And I met my mentor at a networking event in December of 2021. And so January of 2022, I decided, okay, I'm going to invest. And of course, there's the cost. And at the time, I wasn't working because I decided I wasn't going to go back to my 9 to 5. I was going to focus solely on real estate. So money was tight. And so, but it wasn't a thing of how much it cost. It was, how am I going to get the money to pay for it? I wasn't concerned about the cost at all. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? And so at the time I had already had like business credit cards. And so I just called my bank and called them up. I'm like, listen, my cards were kind of coming maxed up because I was living off my credit cards responsibly. I was very strategic. Don't misunderstand that, very strategic. But I called my bank and I was like, listen, I would like to request a credit limit increase. And they were like, well, how much? And I basically said the amount that my mentor, what his fee was. And they were like, yes. And I was like, what? They were like, yeah, you're approved. And I swiped the credit card to pay the mentor. And let me see, January, February, March, April. In 4 months, I closed on my first investment property.
Cool.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you Dave Ramsey you were going, don't do it. Like, that's so Dave Ramsey of you to do.
I had already graduated from Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey is a great entry level approach to personal finance. And so it took me 3 years to pay off my debt. So from 2009 to around 2013, that journey, I had already started that journey, but I had already graduated from that journey as well. And so here we are, almost fast forward, almost 10 years later. It's like, oh no, I understood the power of leveraging credit and using other people's money to make money. So understanding and being able to differentiate between good debt and bad debt. But most people don't have the discipline, or they don't have the foundation when it comes to personal finance. So it's important that you start somewhere with that. But that's just really the gateway. That's really the beginning of your personal finance journey, because at some point you have to learn how to make your money work for you, because that's the key with buying back your time is, okay, how can I put my money to work versus me working for my money, and understanding and using the power of leverage.
That's awesome. Well, I've been in this industry a long time. And if the beautiful thing that Dave Ramsey preaches is delayed gratification. Quit buying what you want when you want it. Because if you do that every day, you're never going to get ahead. So I actually have a lot of respect for him as well. I'm kind of with you. I started as a Dave Ramsey person, a very anti-debt. And then now, of course, I have tons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But there's, like I said, the good debt is the good kind. Yeah.
Tax deduction style debt, not stupid tax debt.
Exactly. Like, we're taking the debt, we're buying assets that, I always tell people, buy the chicken. You buy the chicken with the debt, the chicken's gonna continue to lay the eggs. You can use those eggs to pay off the chicken, but the chicken is still going to produce eggs even after you pay off the debt. So that's the difference, is buying assets versus buying liabilities. The asset's going to pay the debt off, not you. And then it's going to pay you after you pay the debt off. So buy the chicken.
We're sisters in this. I always use the chicken reference. I always say, don't kill the chickens, because people want to sell their chickens or kill their chickens all the time. And I'm like, no, don't sell the chicken. Keep the chicken. Just eggs. Like, don't kill the chickens, is what I'm always saying. I love to use a chicken reference. Oh, I'm so happy right now. Chandler's like, I'm out. I'm out. No.
Follow this.
I hear it. No, I hear it all the
Chandler,
time.
buy the chicken.
I hear it all the time. The question that I'm thinking about right now is, so when most people like want to get started, they go into that education overload. And I know I had the biggest problem with it. They go into education overload and never take action. Was the mentor the one that really pushed you to take action, or like what kind of made you really take action in 4 months? Because most people will sit there and just read for 2 years.
Great question.
I think it's really your motivation. It goes back to your motivation. It goes back to your why. Like, I was so committed to having more time and more freedom in my life. It felt urgent. It felt like I didn't have a lot of time to sit and just learn as much as I could over time. Sometimes you have to apply a little pressure to yourself, whether it's imposed or whether it's external or internal. So me in my mind was like, listen, I don't want to go back to work. I don't want to have to go back. And the longer I wasn't working and the longer I didn't have a property under contract or closed meant that at some point I'm gonna have to go back to work. And so that was really the motivation for me. It was self-imposed, but also external, but also my why for what I was doing. It's creating and setting those goals and being very specific about those goals. And so not only did I say to myself, this is before I met my mentor, before anything, before I left Mexico, I was very clear about what I wanted. I was very clear about what my goals were. I even created a timeline for myself, even in the process of not knowing, even in the process of just getting started and not even, having the education. It was, you know what? I want to buy my first investment property before my birthday of the following year. I put that out there in the universe. I wrote it down. I will say it every day. Anybody I talked to about real estate before I knew anything was like, I'm going to close on my first investment property. And so I put that goal out there for myself to give me something to work towards. And then in the process of the education, because it can be scary sometimes, but to push myself, I'm like, listen, do it scared. It's just do it scared. And I will say to those who may be sitting on the sidelines, who may be a little afraid or reluctant to make a move and make it happen. I love this Les Brown quote. It's like, life begins right outside your comfort zone. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling a little reluctant and scared, that's a good thing. Like, feel the fear. Use that. That's your body telling you, wait, something is about to happen and I don't know what this is. And so you can use it and harness that energy to push you out there. Because I will say, on the sidelines and in the education and all those things, that period of time I was in, I learned a lot, theory and all that stuff. It wasn't until I got out there on the field, I got out there in the game, that I really learned some things that I would have never learned on the sidelines. And listening to other people's story, where I realized you're not going to know everything. There's really no way to know everything or to be good at something, unless you experience some things. Embrace failure. It may happen. It's possible. You may lose. So what? Failure is a part of success. And so those were the driving forces for me. But again, I remember when I put my first property under contract, I called my mentor. I was like, I don't really know what was going on or what I'm doing, but I have the purchase and sale agreement. Can you look at this? And he looked at it. He was like, he was like, you have this on the wrong, it was a subject to deal. And so he was like, oh, you have that on the wrong line, switch it up. I was like, okay, I did that. And then, sent it over to the attorney. It's crazy because it was a foreclosure. And we had like 4 days before the sale. 4 days.
You had 4 days to close your first deal. 4 days?
4 days.
Girl,
4 days, because
here for dinner.
These four, we always look for motivation. We always look, a need to sell, not a want to sell. And you would think a foreclosure would be motivation. But unfortunately, these, some of these sellers, they weren't really motivated, even though the pending sale was coming. It was because of the time that we were in with the pandemic, with the moratorium. So people were so accustomed to the government coming in and providing, saving them or not having to pay. And really that came to an end, and people didn't really fundamentally understand that that was going to come to an end. And they thought that they had a modification when they really just had a forbearance, which is a difference. And so when it was time for it to be due, you had all these people who had not paid their mortgage for a year or 2 years. And the mortgage company was like, okay, when the moratorium is lifted, it was like, it wasn't make your payment moving forward. It was like, no, all the money you owe us, you need to pay us now. And people have been living in this space of not having to do anything. And so it created this, oh, well, it's going to be okay. And so a lot of times they weren't necessarily motivated because they just didn't think that it was going to actually happen, because it hadn't happened in 2 years. They stopped foreclosures, all that, court systems, all that was backed up. And so this particular opportunity that came up, my goal was to help the owner stop the foreclosure. That's how I lead. I lead with compassion. Like, okay, what's your situation? Let me see how I can help, because I lost my home in foreclosure many moons ago. No fault of my own. I was married, there was a divorce, and then when we know how that goes. And I couldn't make any decisions without my ex being involved, and there was no participation on his end. And so I wish someone would have called me and told me what my options were. I didn't know. And so as when I became an investor and I learned the process of foreclosure, I'm like, wow, there's a lot that people may or may not know. So for me, I just call people like, hey, how can I help? What can I do? What do you want to see happen? But this particular case, the young lady was like, listen, I'm just done with it. She had already moved out of the house, moved to another state. But yeah, I just kept trying to get in contact with her because she didn't realize what her options were. She just thought she was going to lose. But yeah, I got it under contract with 4 days to close, called the attorney, and he was like, what? He I had to pay I had to pay a portion of my closing fee up front for him to even take it on. Because at first he told me no. But when you pay for a mentor, you pay for proximity. And he knew my mentor, and he was like, only because of your mentor, I'm going to do this for you. And so with 4 days to close, we would try to get the reinstatement and the mortgage payoff. And a lot of things happened in the process of in those 4 days. A lot of things happened that could have just, if I didn't have a foundation of my why, my motivation, and why I'm doing what I'm doing, I could have easily given up, because it was the process. I always tell people this process of real estate investing is very simple. It's very boom, 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 but it's not always easy. It's not always easy. It's not for the weak. But I fumbled through that, but I was on the field. And because I was in the game, I learned as a part of going through that process on my way to closing. And I was able to close on the deal subject to foreclosure. And I was able, and it was a light rehab. It wasn't really, all I had to do was paint and throw some appliance in the property. And then I turned it into midterm rentals for travel healthcare professionals, because in another life, I am a travel clinical laboratory scientist. So I know what they want. I know what they're looking for as travelers. So yeah, that's get in there, get in the game. That's my
before we get into that, I would love more information on that. But if you're open to sharing, are you comfortable telling us what'd you get the deal for? What was it worth? How much of a discount did you get? What kind of details can you give us about that first deal?
Oh, absolutely. So the property, there was no equity in the property. She had only owned it for maybe 3 years. She had bought it right before I think the pandemic hit. But immediately after that, she lost her job. And so was not able to pay her mortgage for almost 2 years, I think, a year and a half or something like that. And so she was behind, I think it was about 12,000. So I paid the 12,000, and the rehab, I just put that on my business credit card. That was about another 10,000 in the furnish and everything. So I would say all in, I paid about 25 to 30,000 to get all in. and the property is worth about 200,000. But again, there was a mortgage in place, so she owed just as much as it was worth. But that's, that's a beauty with subject to and creative financing, that you can still make a deal even if it appears to be dead. And so my expenses for the property on a monthly basis was about, maybe all in all, about $1,400. And as a midterm rental, I was bringing in $4,000 to $5,000 a month. And so I was able to get.
Hang on one second, Sapphire. I'm sorry. One second. So you came about 12,000 in cash, and then you put the rest on a credit card, the furnishing.
The 10,000 for the
10,000. I'm sorry. And then you took over the debt. You caught the debt back up, and then you started making payments. Is that? I just want to make sure we're explaining it for our listener.
Yes.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So I didn't have to qualify for a new loan. I didn't have to put a down payment. I guess the reinstatement was the form of a down payment. So essentially I got a property for about $25,000, and it took about 8 to 9 months to recoup that. So
that's not terrible. And then you have a good APR. Like, what's the debt look like? Is it a 30-year loan, low APR? Like how?
Yeah, 30-year fixed at 2.5%. Yeah.
Nice. So the debt is still in her name. You're making the payment every month. She doesn't care because you're doing her a service. She now does not have a foreclosure. She looks like she pays her debt every month, even though it's you writing the check.
Yes. So it's rebuilding. So she doesn't have the foreclosure and helping to rebuild her credit.
So I want to ask, most people always are like, how did you find it? How did you find that deal? How did you find that lady? That's the first thing that I want to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, like I say, it was a foreclosure. And so every month is, what's the website? Equity Depot? I think the website is. So I just bought a list. I bought a list of foreclosure.
How much does that cost? I have no idea. $50, $20?
It's a monthly subscription. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I think I don't want to misquote it, but it's like we just pay a monthly subscription for that to get the list for the entire state of Georgia.
Wow.
I also use PropStream, but PropStream is not that effective, if you will, for a non-judicial state because the process is so quick. And by the time PropStream catches up to the sale, like it's already, well, catching up to the fact that it's in foreclosure, it's already sold probably at that point because it has to update over time. So you can pull a foreclosure list on PropStream, but it's delayed.
Okay.
It's delayed. And so, but you can use that to pull a list too. So got the list, pay for the list. Then I use REI Reply as my customer relation management. So that's my CRM. I use that to manage my contacts. I use that to market to my contacts. And so this particular campaign, I did a text message and cold call campaign. And so sent out text messages, and that's how I was able to get in contact with the sellers through a text message and cold call campaign. She responded to a text message. I got on the phone and asked her the questions. Okay, how can we help? I always lead with, how can we help? And that allows them to tell and explain their situation and circumstances. She told me what her pain point was. She told me, she was just more concerned about, it was a VA loan. She didn't want to lose the chance to be able to use it again, maybe down the line. And because there was no equity, I couldn't offer her anything. If there was equity, you could still use creative finance. And I'll explain another deal that I had. It was a foreclosure, but this second deal, there was a significant amount of equity in the property. But this first deal, there was no equity. So I just offer her money to move. I offer her like $1,000 to help her in her moving expenses, and all that was tied into the closing and everything.
Chris, so you brought up a new question, and I genuinely want to know. I don't know the answer, but VA loans, it's interesting that you're telling me that you bought a VA loan that was in foreclosure, because I've always heard that you pretty much had to die to get out of them. So does that mean she was not getting any VA benefits? Is that how she was not making the payments? Because normally the VA is going to take your payment out of what the government's sending you because you're a vet. Am I crazy on that, Sapphire? What are your
I've never heard of that. And I've seen plenty of VA loans on the foreclosure list.
Really? And
Yeah, there are
they're,
plenty VA, FHAs. Yeah, like
oh,
I don't know what that benefit is that they're receiving, but I don't know if it includes making mortgage payments.
okay.
You have the benefit of coming into a mortgage with no down payment and all those
Right.
things, but I don't know if you're behind on your payments, if they will come pay your mortgage. Maybe there's like supplemental income that you're receiving, and maybe you're supposed to put it towards that.
Right.
But whether the individual is doing that or not, I'm not really sure. But I don't know if they directly pay your mortgage if you get behind for whatever reason. Because like I said, there's VA loans on that list every month.
Oh, that's interesting. But what you're saying is I just learned this from you, if they foreclose on you, then you lose that benefit. You can never take out another VA loan. Is that right?
I'm
So
not
that's why
100% on that, but that was my understanding that if you
makes
foreclose, you
sense.
lose that ability to use that benefit in the future. That was my understanding of that.
For whatever reason, and I'm uneducated, I'm just explaining my reasoning. I've always thought of VA loans like student loans, and you can't get out of a student loan. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's just, you have to die to get away from a student loan. So anyway, that's interesting because the government, they have a pretty long arm. So
And the mortgage is, I mean, if you look just a higher level view, it looks like she just paid her mortgage. She bought it current. She
yeah,
still has the VA loan. It doesn't look like from the outside, it doesn't look like, oh, there's anything in terms of her losing it,
right.
not paying it, because I bought it current. It's still in her name. She's still in good standing. So everything looks good on her side when it comes to the VA loan.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, I think the really good information here is most people forget is the acquisitions part. And thanks for sharing that. Hey, get a list, start calling. Do you get more people responding to text or calls?
Gosh, I feel like it's 50-50.
Okay.
And I think that's maybe like an age thing, just depending on how old the owner is.
That makes sense.
I feel like the older they are, the less likely they are to respond to text messages.
Okay.
The younger they are, the more likely they are to respond to your
Makes
text
sense.
message. So I think it's a age demographic thing when it comes to that. But I feel like it's 50-50. But I'm hitting them with at least 4 times. So I'm hitting them with the calling. I'm hitting them with a text message. Sometimes I send an email out, and sometimes I send a postcard out. So they're going to see me, my name, and my company at least 4 times in this 30-day period that I have to market to them. So at least 4 touches. It's not just, oh, just send a text message and you're done. No. And I've been told no on several occasions. And no today doesn't mean no tomorrow. It really just comes down to the motivation and the pressure that they're feeling that, oh, this is really going to happen. Because again, I feel like a lot of them are in the mindset of like, oh, it's not going to happen. They've been threatening me with the foreclosure for a while. And so yeah, and the second deal I was telling you about, where there was actually equity in the deal, the young lady, I actually helped her stop the foreclosure. She told me she lost her job. She wanted to stay at her home. It was around Christmas time. And I was like, absolutely. And so I told her about the programs that I was familiar with, she had no idea about. And I told her what ways that she can stop the foreclosure on her own. And we successfully stopped the foreclosure temporarily while she figured out how she was going to come up with the money and be able to start paying her mortgage. Well, 2 months later, I get the list. She's back on the list. She wasn't able to, stop it like she had planned, but she was able to go through the holidays and Christmas and Thanksgiving without being put out. And so I called her back up. I was like, hey, what's going on? How can I help? And she was like, I can't do it. Like I tried. I did all the things. It's like, I can't. And, how can you help me? Like, and I was like, I can buy it. And so with her, subject to, again, it was a foreclosure, same campaign, same approach, get the list, send the text message, call. But I had already developed a relationship with her before. And so we had that rapport already and got it under contract. And again, just subject to leaving the existing finance in place. And what we did was do a seller carry for the equity.
Hmm.
So I think we were offering her about 30 or 40,000 on the back end of the deal. And so it was seller carry on the back end once we sell. So no payment, no interest. When we sell the property, you will get the 40,000. So we gave her 10,000 at closing and promised to give the other 30,000 on the back end. So the only carrying cost that we had was her mortgage. This was another loan that was 3% interest fixed. So the monthly payments was like, our whole cost was $1,200 something dollars, something like that. And we paid the utilities. It was a 3-month rehab. And this deal was unique because, again, I didn't have the money necessarily to put up front for, because she was behind about $50,000. So
You
much
guys come
higher
up with
than,
yeah.
much higher than the first one.
Yeah.
Much higher than the first one. And this particular deal, I was working a contract in California. I was working in a hospital in California. So I wasn't in Georgia at the time. It was in Atlanta, in the metro Atlanta area. And so what I did was got it under contract for the subject too, but I got a partner to help reduce the expenses on my end. So it's a JV type of deal to come up with the acquisition. While in California, working at the hospital, my trainer, I was working with her. She invited me to go to Napa Valley, and I'm telling her, just met her, but I'm telling her and a friend that she invited about this real estate deal that I have. And, would they not, and I wasn't directly asking them for money. I just was telling them about an opportunity. And before because the drive from San Francisco to Napa Valley is about 2 hours. By the time we got to Napa Valley, before we started sipping on wine, they agreed to give me $20,000. Her and her friend. And I just met these people. I didn't know them from Adam. She was my trainer. I just met her. And this was a 3-month contract. So it wasn't like I was working this for years. I just met her and her friend on the wine tasting trip. So I used the private money for my acquisition portion, got the JV to reduce the expenses. The rehab was $150,000.
Ouch.
Yeah. But my contractor took credit cards. So I used my business credit card to pay for all the rehab, my portion of it. Because again, I'm splitting it 50-50 with my partner. And so no money out of my pocket in this deal. And after 3 months, we cleared about 100,000 a piece profit on that. On a single family. Yeah. So it was under contract for we got on contract for, I think it was like 190. We sold it for 540. Yeah.
Wow.
Nice. Congrats. That's your second deal.
Yeah.
So your mentor has paid for himself over and over.
10 times. Yeah. I always tell people, get a mentor, it's do your due diligence, obviously, on the program. For me, it was important to be a part of a mentor program where I had access to the coach, because some of these programs are so big, you don't have access to whoever the mentor is. But for me, it was important to have that connection with the mentor and the coach. And it was also like the teaching style of it was like we met 3 times a week. 2 days out the week we were just on calls, and then there was like an education portion once a week in person. And so that was very important to me. And it was a year-long thing. It wasn't just like, 3 months or anything like that. It was a year-long program. And so to me, that, my advice, anyone out there looking for a mentor, is to do your due diligence and to figure out what your teaching style is and find someone or a program that fits into your learning and your teaching style, and someone and something that they have the credibility and, they able to produce results that you can verify, and someone that you feel like you can connect and resonate with. That's very, very important.
I want to jump over to medium-term rentals now.
Yeah.
It's your thing. We manage a good bit. I want to hear some tips and tricks that you use to get people to stay booked.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, just having that experience as a healthcare professional traveler, having that insight in terms of, because I rent by the room. And So I understand that fundamentally because when I'm out there, I'm okay with renting by the room, but also the type of environment that I create in my spaces is one that is conducive for someone that is a healthcare professional. Something as simple as having blackout curtains, having a desk in the room and available for them, being able to have the amenities and things that they need to be able to feel like they're home away from home because these contracts minimally are 13 weeks, but they can, like, I used to do contracts. I used to always extend my contract. So I will always do up to like 9 months sometimes. You don't go over a year because then you're no longer a contract worker, but I would extend my contract. So making sure all those things are in place makes a huge difference. Because I manage my properties myself. And because I travel a lot, I'm doing everything from my cell phone. Like I just moved back to America. I was gone for 10 months. I was in Europe for 2.5 months. And then I went to Mexico and I was there for 6 months. And I was able to manage my property just from my cell phone. So being able to communicate effective, like communication is big when you're dealing with midterms. I guess that's big across the board, but having effective communication and just uh, prioritizing your tenant needs when they reach out to you and being available and them feeling like that they are a priority.
That's great.
So I just want to ask this, what are like 5 non-negotiables that you have to have in a medium-term rental? 3 to 5, whatever, like, must-haves when you're traveling you mainly get travel nurses, is that what you said?
Yes, so travel nurses, flight attendants and pilots,
Hmm.
that's big.
Mhm.
Also, and not just nurses, but all travel healthcare. So physicians, therapists. One of my places now, I have a therapist and I have a flight attendant from Delta.
Huh.
Also SCAD students who are maybe doing their internship. So they're just here
Mhm.
temporarily. So, and Savannah, it's a big film industry. People may not know that. So you have a lot of workers that are working on a film and they just need a place to stay
Mhm.
temporarily. And so for me as a travel healthcare professional, my non-negotiable are the blackout curtains.
Mhm.
There you go.
That's that's not a non-negotiable, but that's so important to
It
me.
is important.
Especially if I'm working, I don't work night shifts anymore. I'm like, no, that's a non-negotiable. I don't do the night shift, graveyard shift, but some people love it. And so the nurses, some of them are like, oh, I need those blackout curtains. Um,
Mhm.
being able, like
Okay.
having a desk,
So every
lighting,
bedroom has a desk. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Lighting is important. And so I know we talk about blackout curtains, but just lighting because I have other businesses. So I'm always on Zoom calls in addition to going to clock in. So having good lighting in the space.
Yeah. Some people
Um,
underestimate that.
yeah, they do. Yeah. People,
Estimate
yeah, that
lighting.
makes a huge
I think lighting is
difference.
very important.
Yeah, very important. Having a lock on my door, especially if renting by the room, that
Mhm.
makes me feel very secure. Having a
You
lock
mean a
on the
lock and then an inside latch where you can latch yourself in? Is that what you mean by a
No,
lock?
just having a keypad lock on the door is, makes me feel safe. And laundry, being able to
Yeah.
um, do laundry. I know some people, and this is not a non-negotiable for me, but I know of travelers, they want to be able to have some place to make sure they can park their car and their car feel like, okay, it's not on the street, it's not going to get hit. So having a place to park their vehicle. Most time I don't take my car on travel assignments, but I know travelers who drive. And so having some place safe where they can like park their car and having all like I meal prep. So having all the kitchen appliances and things that I can use, like a blender and a crock pot and things that I can use to cook as well. Those are the main things.
I know with rent by the room, parking is always at the top of the issue list. So how have you addressed that? Have you kept it in less bedrooms? Like, how do you address the parking? Because that's kind of tough. That's not something you can easily do to a house.
Yes. And so usually what I do is, so I have, and also like how I have my stays set up, because I use Furnish Finders,
Mhm.
the platform to find travel healthcare professionals. But so with a 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath, I have a minimum like how many people can stay in the facility as well, to make sure they have the parking and stuff that they need. That makes a difference as well. Like, so even though it's a 3 bedroom, it's like the in-suite, two max people, and the other is just one person. So that way you're not having all these cars
Yeah.
piled up in, your place.
And then I'm curious to know, how do you price your bedrooms? Like, obviously the ensuite is going to be more valuable than the one where they have to walk down the hall. So what's your theory on pricing?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I do charge more if you have your own private bath versus you having to use a shared bath. And usually with my pricing, I also check the neighborhood. So I'll use AirDNA to see like the what the room rates are going for. And I'll also get on Airbnb and I'll put it in the neighborhood that I'm in. I'll see what everyone else is charging. But also I use smart pricing to help me, because sometimes there are events happen, there's things going on, and I don't have time to go in there and adjust my prices every time. Like, because most time I don't even know what's going on. So I use smart pricing to set my price. I have minimum
Mhm.
that I'm willing to take, but I allow the smart pricing. I use Price Labs to do the smart pricing for me, because they're going to do the data research to see, they're going to compare the apples to apples and see what everyone else is listing their rooms for in the area that you're in. And so that has been very useful for me, is using that smart pricing tool. So I don't have to try to figure that out.
Yeah. So you're on multiple websites. You're not just on Airbnb. You're on, I mean, not obviously you're on Airbnb, but you're not just on Furnish Finder. You're on what other websites other than
I just use the two platforms. I use Airbnb,
Okay.
because you don't realize that you can get midterm
Yeah.
rental or tenants from Airbnb. And the reason I know that is because my thing with, as a traveler, is, and back in the day I used to use Craigslist. Craigslist has gotten so like junky now. It's not necessarily that great. I used to use Craigslist, and then I would go to Airbnb, and then I would look on Furnish Finders. So a lot of times what I would do as well is I would maybe use Airbnb for like a week or two once I get into a particular place, to kind of like get like boots on the ground, to see the neighborhood, see the area, especially if I'm not familiar with the city. So I would use Airbnb for a couple weeks and then branch out. But then also too, you can put in, because I offer monthly discounts and minimum stays on my Airbnb to make sure that I'm getting long-term people. And so you can put in that month or two to see like what the rate could be, and then to um, compare it, and also maybe reach out to the owner on Airbnb, like, hey, I'm on a contract. This is what I need. Can I set up something a little bit more long term, or do you offer discounts for long term? And I do. On Airbnb, I offer monthly, like weekly and monthly discounts to attract those who are not familiar with Furnished Finders, because some travelers are not even familiar. I think more people are familiar now. Like, I've been a traveler for the past almost 10 years. So I was in the space and a lot of people didn't know about certain things. But I think, it's becoming more popular. People are familiar with Furnished Finders and the Gypsy Nurse Finders and stuff like that. So yeah, that's those are the two main ones.
Stefar, tell us a little bit more about your investing in Savannah. We've talked about 2 deals you did in Atlanta, which that's awesome. But have you, what parts
Oh,
of,
the first one was in Savannah, the second one
oh,
was in Atlanta.
the
And
first
I've
one.
done,
Okay.
yeah, the first one, it was actually by accident. I had set up I had set up a text campaign. I remember, I'm so inexperienced. I had set up a campaign, but somehow when I went to pull, because you go in and you pull out the areas that you want, somehow I inadvertently pulled out Chatham County some kind of way. So I didn't even realize Chatham was even in my campaign. I just thought it was the 5 counties in Metro Atlanta. And so when I saw it and I saw the address, I was like, Savannah.
That's funny.
Some kind of way. I was like, we're gonna just go with it. Just go with it. But that was kind of, even though Savannah was, a place that I was interested in, but when I got started, I didn't want to spread myself so thin and just get so overwhelmed with all these markets.
Mhm.
But yeah, some kind of way I inadvertently put the Savannah in that campaign. And so the first property was Savannah. The other properties, because I've done other deals. So the fix and flip and the other one I was telling you about was in Atlanta.
That worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now I'm to a place in my investing journey because, I guess I'm still new in this. I started in 2022, but in the journey of due diligence, running your numbers, finding deals, deal finding, putting deals on the contract for one door, I was like, man, how can I be more efficient with this and to grow and scale my business? And now I'm in the place where I started Queens by Buildings. And we have Queens by Houses, but also Queen by Buildings. So I'm scaling my business into investing in small multifamily apartments.
Good for you.
That is focus and goal that I've been like zeroed in on since January of this year. So again, that same process, because it's a different world, right? Even though some of the fundamentally bases are the same, like, okay, you got to find a deal. You have to run your numbers, which is called underwriting in multifamily. You have to do your due diligence, acquisition, raise money if you need to, rehab and manage the property. Same thing in single family, but there's a different language. The language is different. So it's always like almost like starting over. So finding a mentor that I relate to and resonate with, getting the education, networking, developing, direct mail campaigns, the same thing. So that's the space that I'm in now. And again, my multifamily investing is in, the Savannah and surrounding areas. So Chatham County, Effingham County, Bryan County, Liberty County. These are the areas, or anywhere I can get in my car and drive from Savannah, anywhere 4-hour radius. That's where I'm looking to invest in small multifamily commercial as well. So residential and commercial. So anywhere from 2 to 50 units to get started. And so, and like I was talking about before, being a relationship-based business, but multifamily is definitely important to get on with the team, whether you're doing a syndication or you want to take a deal down with a few partners, two or four people, where you take the deal down and you manage it and do everything you need together. That's where my focus is now.
So
Cool.
when are you going to get this when you get your first property? I know you're working towards it.
This year.
This
This year. I already put it out there. This year I'm going to close on my first multifamily.
Any leads on that so far? Or?
Well, I started my direct mail campaign. The commercial real estate space and just multifamily space is kind of tricky right now with interest rates the way they're going, and a lot of people loans are coming due, so you're having a lot of challenges. And so it's kind of slow. So thank God for my single family. I still, work towards that as well. And single family is a great way to raise capital, to buy and sell, to raise capital, to get the money for multifamily. So, but in the interim is that education, that developing, that networking, making those relationships and those connections, and that direct mail marketing and seasoning and nurturing the leads that I have so far. So yeah.
Good for you. Well, you're doing that right here, Sapphire. Someone's going to hear you and be like, I want to work with her.
Yes.
I'm definitely going to reach out.
Yes, absolutely. That's what it's all about. I love this.
Well, Sapphire, if anybody wants to reach out to you, like how can they find you? I know you have the number on the shirt, or are you on social media or anything? Like, how can they find you?
Yes, absolutely. So you can find me as Coach Sapphire Star with 2 R's on TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
All right.
Yep, Facebook, I'm Sapphire Wilder. And then I have a website, sapphirestar with 2Rs.com. And that's kind of like my link tree. So you can, my Calendarly link is there. So you want to book a call, we can hop on and talk and get to know each other more. Just go to sapphirestar.com and we can connect via that way. And of course, queensbyhouses.com and queensbybuildings.com.
Love it. We are absolutely going to put your info in the show notes. And it's just such an honor to get to know you. And, we look forward. We're going to see you hopefully October 17 at our next meetup. And
Yes,
maybe
absolutely.
we might need to get you on the panel because we're talking about short-term rentals. I'll talk to you about that later. But
Yes, I would love to. That's why I came back to America like this time too, because I left and came back and was like, listen, multifamily or
yes,
just growing and developing my business and making those relationships and making my presence known in Savannah. Like that's what I'm here for, and that's what I'm focused on.
good. In my opinion, Savannah has the best real estate investor group in the world. Like everyone
Yes.
is just so wonderful and works together. And it's just such an honor to get to know you. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. This has truly been an honor. Like this is amazing. I absolutely love the opportunity to be able to come on and share my story, to empower others and be able to make those connections. So I really do appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing with cash flow too, because when I moved back to Savannah, because I was living in Atlanta and going back and forth, it was very important for me to find a group of people and go-getters in Savannah that are making it happen. So I'm so glad that I found your group on Facebook and been coming to the meetings ever since I moved back a couple of months ago.
Absolutely. Just promise us that when you get that multifamily, you're going to come on again and tell us. We want all the details. We want to know how you did it, who you did it with. And
Yes.
I'm excited to hear more. I mean, shoot, we're going to have to just have you every 6 months because you're going to, Lord knows what you're going to be doing next year this time.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to come back.
I love that you just kind of burned your ships and figured it out, because Chandler was talking about fear and that's very real. We all have it. And you just said, nope, I'm quitting everything and I'm going to figure it out. And like, I
Yeah.
just really commend you that's tough.
Do it scared. Like, do it scared. Even if you're afraid, do it anyway.
Well, and speaking of fear, I really coach me for a second, Sapphire. I know we're about to wrap up, just coach me, but I've told everyone I've ever asked that's asked me about my portfolio, every stinking time I get something under contract, I freak out. And I have a good bit of doors. And I'm right now trying to buy a lot and I want this lot. I've wanted it for years. And we're actually kind of to the end of our negotiation phase. I'm working on financing and I'm very excited about this lot. And then I
Congratulations.
happened to be on the phone with a friend that's in real estate this morning. And I said, yeah, I'm going to buy a lot. And then I said what I was buying and they thought I was insane. They thought the price was like stupid. And it made me freak out. First, I really was like, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't buy this lot. And then I was like, I'm freaking out again. Like, what do you have an advice on that? Like, what's your advice on fear? Like, I'm a seasoned investor and I kind of had a minute where I doubted myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Fear is natural, fear is real. And what helps me navigate fear is the confidence I build, especially like with running my numbers, because we make money when we buy. So understanding fully what I'm getting myself into, understanding the market that I'm getting myself to, understanding and running my numbers very conservatively, because my midterm rentals, I don't run my numbers as midterm rentals. I run them at market because the midterm rental space can disappear. And then what?
For a long-term rent. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't run my numbers based on that. So I always run my numbers very conservatively. And then on the other side of that is having multiple exit strategies. And that helps me. It's like, okay, say for instance, I had an extra strategy and it may not work. Being able to say, okay, if this doesn't work, then I have this in place. And so that helps me through that process and feeling confident about the decisions that I'm making is that, okay, I ran my numbers conservatively. I made money when I bought it. I have multiple exit strategies on the other end. That helps me in this journey. And again, just stepping outside of your comfort zone, but tapping into your community, tapping in with other investors that you trust, that you can just say, can you look at these numbers? What do you think about this decision that I'm making? And you can't share that with everyone, but someone, I know you got people that are close to you that you trust 1000% to share what you want to do. Tap into that community, tap into those people and just run that back by them to make sure that you have the confidence that you need to continue, or just to reiterate, because you already feel very confident about it, and to reiterate what you already know and to make it happen. That's how I'm able to navigate fears, to make sure I feel like educated and knowledge and confident about the decision that I'm making.
And May I say, I agree with everything you just said. And I have always followed those tactics for over 20 years. And in this case, I have none of that. It's just my gut. It's literally, I have no numbers. I have no rent. It's a lot. There's nothing on it. There's no way for me to go, look at my 3 exit strategies. It's called,
Right.
figure it out. I'm going to float it, for a little bit.
Why are you deviating for what you normally do?
My gut on this is it's going to be one of my greatest assets because
Mm.
it's just a killer location. And I have multiple things I'm going to do with it. But it's not going to cash flow right away, but it might cash flow in other ways. It's super complicated. I'm going to talk about it later once I have it completely nailed down. I'm not comfortable until I completely nail it down saying it, but I'm going to buy it. It's going to be an advertising play, and then it's going to cash flow later, if that makes sense. I'm just going to use my lot, advertise.
Absolutely. And one thing I would encourage you to do is to ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen as a result of you
That's right.
pulling the trigger on this deal? And if you're okay with the worst that can happen and reverse engineering it backwards, if you're okay with that, then yeah, make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. The worst that can happen is I'm going to float a $1 or $2, $3,000 payment every month for
And you have to ask yourself, am I okay with that? Is that going to kill my business? Is that
Have
going
I
to
done
kill
it
my
before?
portfolio?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're okay with that outcome, then reverse engineer it backwards. Then
I really
yeah.
appreciate that question, actually, Sapphire. That's kind of what I needed, because I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. What's the worst that can happen?
What's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coach
I like it.
Sapphire Star in the house. I appreciate that. I needed it. I guess I just had this for myself today. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, that went by so fast. I'm like,
I
whoa.
know it
Like,
did.
it always flies by.
It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Oh, Chandler and I can go for hours. It's terrible. You want us to wrap it up. We'll just keep peppering you with questions. It's a problem. But thank you so much for coming on, Sapphire. And anyone that's out there, if you want to work with Sapphire, I know she is open to any conversation. So find that link tree, get on that Calendly link, and book a call. I might be having to do it myself later when I need some more therapy. So thank you. Thank you for coaching.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, guys. Thank you for coming on and listening to episode 58. Please like, comment, subscribe, and let everybody know about this. We just want people to hear it. We don't make anything from this. We want you to just learn from this. But yeah, please let us know what you want to listen to next, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye-bye.